Okay, yeah, welcome everyone. So today we are going to cover two modules which are intent and intent filters. We'll talk about content providers, web view and deep links. What are this web view? What are deep links? How we can exploit them, and then we will talk about Android debug bridge. So let's move on. You guys can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So now we will talk about what are intents and what is the use of intent filters. So intent is basically a messaging component which can be used to communicate between the Android components. So here it is written like there are three fundamental use cases for intents. Means for what we the intent can be used. So we can use an intent to starting an activity. So we can start an activity with the help of intent. So we just have to pass that intent to the start activity, and yes, that activity will be started. So similarly, we can start a service. So you guys already know what our service is. So services are basically the background task which runs. So those can be a foreground task or a background task. So we can start a service by passing the intent to the start service. So when we pass the intent to start service, the activity the service will start. Then also we can use intent to deliver a broadcast. So we just have to pass the intent to the send broadcast, and then we can deliver that particular broadcast to any component which we want. So there are two types of intents: implicit intent and an explicit intent. So what is an implicit intent? So basically, an implicit intent is one which do not specify a component. So instead, it will specify enough information about that particular component, and then the system will give a pop-up like which component you want to perform this action. So basically, here you can see that I have declared one intent. So I've declared one intent with action view, and I'm passing a URI to it. So URI is just an example.com, and when I start that particular intent, the system gave me this like with which application you want to open this example.com. So these are basically an implicit intent. Means we are not particularly determining like for which component we want to run this intent with, but we are making a system to give us some information like which application can handle this intent, and then we are choosing it like from which application we want to do these actions. Then if you move to the explicit is basically we are explicitly telling that this intent or this target class I want to send this intent to. So explicit intent are basically used within the application. So here you can see, so we're declaring an intent. So this is basically meaning the context of the application. So this for this application and the target class. So when I start the activity with passing the intent, so that intent will go to this target class. So this is basically two types of intents, an implicit and explicit. So in case you have any questions, you can just ask, or we can move forward like how we use intent in starting an activity. So let's move forward then. So how we can start an activity? So as we discussed, an activity is basically a screens that we see on the application. So each screen is a different activity. So how we basically call this different activities? Like if there is application with 10 activities, and how can we call this 10 activities? So we do this with the help of intents. So now we will see like how we are doing this. So basically this is like building an implicit intent to open a link. So now what we will do, we will declare an implicit intent in one application, and then from another application we will try to call that intent. So this is the part of the code which is trying to call it. So you can see that we have first declared a web page with this URL, and then if you okay, I'll just zoom it. Okay, yeah. So then I'm passing the action view to that particular URI, and then I'm starting the activity. So I'll just show you how this works. So I have two applications. So let me open those. Okay. Okay. So this is the application wherein we have declared an intent filter for a particular activity. So you can just see. So there is one activity called as my browser activity. So basically, you can say that this application is kind of handling the intents whenever we click a link. So this my browser activity is there. So it has an action view, a name view with an action view. Then since it's an implicit intent, we have to set this category for that. So we have to set this default category, and then also we have set a browsable category to it, so that we can say that it is an browsable thing. That link is a browsable, obviously. And then we are determining the scheme, like since it is a URL, then HTTPS or HTTP scheme will come. So what will happen now? So let me just fire this up in my device. And there is another application, this application. Let me fire this also. Okay, so as you can see, this is the course activity app, and the first button, what it is doing basically. So let the user select the app to respond to this activity. So this is so let me show you the code for this also. So this is the code, implicit activity. So what we are doing is, we are declaring a URI, and then we are setting the action view to it, since we want to view it, and then we are starting the activity by passing the intent to it. So
Hello.
then when I click this,
Sorry to interrupt. Can you please go a little slow? It's difficult to grasp.
okay, yeah. So do you have any question, like you didn't get anything?
Implicit implant one.
Okay.
Can you explain me that again?
Yeah. Let me explain. So as I said, implicit is basically an activity. There will be in particular the characteristics which will be given to the activity. So as I told you, let me show you that. So here we have declared one activity. So these are its kind of characteristics with the intent filter. So this activity will be invoked when you call an intent with this particular things. Like when you call an intent with action view, and then if you provide a category browsable, and then if the scheme is HTTPS or HTTP, then this activity will be invoked. So what we are doing is, this is activity app 2. So from the activity app 1, we are trying to call this. So there is one activity app C. So we are setting this intent with view, and then we are passing it to the start intent, and we are giving the URL. So whenever I click here, implicit activity, see, you can see that that particular app is also listed here. Means I can open the URL with my browser, the inbuilt browser. I can even open the URL with that course activity app too. And there is one more application which is installed, which is having the intent filter same as I discussed. So this 3 application can handle this activity. So that's why it is showing this. So did you get like what is happening here, or anyone have any doubt? So what are implicit intents? Okay. So yes, so why this app came here is basically, you can see that we have declared that particular activity with this intent filter. So this application is basically responding to that action. So whenever we start an intent from the course activity app 1 or the course activity app, then this application will respond to it. So that is what is happening here. So let me also close this applications, which are not required right now. Okay. So we'll move forward. So as you can read here, so what this particular function is doing, so it is basically creating a URI with a URI class. So then you are passing it to URI parse, and we create a particular intent with action view, and then pass the URI to it. So we are passing that particular evil.com to this action view, and then we are firing up the particular intent with start activity. So when you do start activity intent, is basically going to set this particular parameters to it, view, and then this URL. So as you can see that whichever application will handle those intent filters means whichever application is having those intent filters will come up, like where with which application you want to open that link. So that is happening here. So now we will look into what is building an explicit intent for calling in an in-app activity. So we can, so as I said, we use intents to call activities inside the application. So there might be different activities, 1, 2, 3, or many activities. So how we do it? So basically, what we do. So here we are declaring one intent. So let me show you. So here we're declaring one intent. With this intent, we're passing the package context. That is, we're telling that this intent is basically for this application only. The context is this application. And then we are calling the particular class which is inside the application. So then we are just passing that intent to the start activity, and that particular activity will be opened. So let me show you that also. So if I open the app, so this is the thing, this button, second button. So what we are doing, we are calling explicit activity within the app. So when I click this, see, activity 2 is open. So activity 2 is also the part of this application only. So we are explicitly telling the application to open this one. So as if you want to see it again, yeah, see, you are on activity 2. So let me show you the code for this. See, this is the code which I just discussed now. So we are calling this explicit activity self, and then we are passing the intent to it.
Can you zoom a bit the code?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
So-
once more. Yeah, this is good.
Okay. So as you can see, this explicit activity self is within the application only. So this is the activity. So this is the actually we got the toast message right on the activity 2. So this activity is within that application only. So if you see, you will get that toast message. This is the toast message on the activity 2. So it is within the application. So this is what is explicit activities are, which are a part of the application itself. Yes. So can we move ahead? Okay. So now what we have seen is how we can call an implicit activity and an explicit activity. But now we will see like how we allow other application to call an activity within our application. So there are two methods. Either we can declare an intent filter to the particular activity, or we can say that that particular activity is exported. So we'll first look at the method 1. So as you can see here in this code snippet, we have we have an activity which is called as explicit activity app1, and it has an intent filter to it. So this intent filter will react whenever the action is sent. This is default, means basically this is for an implicit activity, means if you don't provide this, then this activity cannot be called from other application. And then we'll also respond to the MIME type, which is text plain. So this activity will respond to these things. So now we'll look at that application. So now in this course activity app2, if you go to manifest, see, this is the activity it is. So it will react to the action send. So let me zoom it more. It will, the name is default, the category is default, and MIME type should be text plain. So now from the app1, if I click this third button, so what it is saying is calling implicit activity from another app with intent filter. So this is that activity. So when I click this, the second app will open. So now it is course activity app. Now if I click it, so you can see that it is now popping up. So for this intent filter, this messaging app is also having the same intent filter. So that's why it is shown here. So now if I click this, I want to go in here just once. So you can see that implicit activity invoked with intent filter. So basically this activity app2 has that particular intent filter to this particular activity, And now if you go to this implicit activity intent filter, okay, this one. So you can see this text what we received just now. So we are just what this means is this activity app2 has exposed this activity to the another application with the help of intent filter. So that's why we are able to call it. So this is method 1 with the help of intent filter, but there is one more method. So this is basically the code which is used to call that. So this code will be in this app1. So if you look at that code, so this is the code part. So we are setting action as action send. We are providing the MIME type as a text plain. So that is why that activity reacted, because it has an intent filter with this kind of properties in it. So if anyone has a confusion till now, you can just ask question anything, or we can move ahead. Okay. So now,
how does the code and the Android manifest declaration differ actually? Can you just
No.
go back to the manifest file?
Okay, so that manifest file is for course activity 2. So if you can look there, manifest file, you can see here, this is the activity. So what we are doing is this activity app2 is declaring an intent filter for his activity. That means he is allowing the external application to call this activity. So to call this activity, what we did, we wrote a code in app1 to basically call that. So we are passing the action send. So if you look here, see the action is send, and we are also passing the MIME type as a text plain. So if you look here, the MIME type is text plain. So this activity will react to that.
Yep. Yeah, so
Yeah.
anyone has any doubts over here? Make sure so that everyone understands this.
Yeah, if anyone has doubts, please ask, because in case if you want to find bugs related to this, like the components which are exported, like activity services or broadcast receiver, and how you can write a piece of code to just show the proof of concept, then yes, you need to understand these things. So please, if you have a doubt, then ask right now. Okay, so let's move forward then. So as I said, this is the piece of code which is calling that activity. So there is method 2. So method 1, as we saw, we declare an intent filter, and that activity becomes like any application can call it. Otherwise, we can set this exported as true, and then also that particular activity can be called by other application. So, but the thing with exported is equal to true, if you want to call that particular activity, you have to know the package name as well as the activity name. So as you can see here, the piece of code is this is from application 1, and it is calling that activity which is declared in application 2. So you can see it should know the package name. So as you can see, com.example.course activity app2, and it should also know the activity name. So what is that activity is. So now if you open the app1, so this is the 4th button. So what it is doing, it's implicit activity from another app with exported through. So if I click here, you can see that directly the application 2 opens. So it is saying that implicit activity with exported through. So yes, so this code, if you want to see in app1, so here is the code for it, this part.
Yeah, so anyone can tell us like how can we get the application package name or the activity name, or from where can we get the package name and activity name?
Yes, since we yesterday see how we can read manifest.xml, can anyone tell us like which tag will have this particular parameter or will give this information about the package name. Okay, let me show you that. So when we in the android.manifest manifest.xml, if you can look into this manifest tag, so you can see the package name. So this is actually the package name for that particular application. And here also you can get the activity name as well. So this is the main activity, which is basically the name of the activity. So if there is something other activity, then you can directly get it from here. So you have to look into the manifest file to get those information. So let's continue. Okay, so we have so what we saw now. So we can start how to invoke an implicit activity, and then how to invoke an explicit activity. Then we saw like what we have to do so that other application can invoke our activities. So there are two methods. We can either use intent filters, or we can either set this exporter as true, and then also the other application can invoke it. So let's move to the services now. So basically, a service is nothing but an process which runs at the background. It doesn't have any UI. It can be a foreground process or a background process. So this is a service life cycle. So there are two things here. So you can actually start a service with the help of a start service command, and then the life cycle will start. So on the left hand side, you can see call to start service. So this can also start a service, or you can start a service by using call to bind service. But the difference is here, these services are the normal services, but these are the bound services. So yesterday, as we discussed, bound services are nothing but which are bound to a particular activity or particular component. So as long as that component is still alive, the services will be running. But when the component is that particular component is destroyed, then the services will be also destroyed. So these are the two things in the services. So as you can see, so whenever a services can be started with the start service or bind service. So let's consider the first thing, the unbounded services thing. So when we call the start service, these two methods are called on create and on start command. So basically what it means is when you start a service, you can write your piece of code in on start command. So what you want to do with this service. So then the service will start running, and the services can be stopped under this unbounded services with the help of stop service. So when you hit the particular method stop service, then the service will stop and on destroy will be called, and service will be shut down, as you can see in this flow. Yes. Okay. So on the right hand side there is a bind service. So similar to the start service, when you start this particular method bind service, then on create and on bind will be called, and the client are bound to that service. So any component will be bound to that service. So if you want to first you have to unbind it. You can see that unbind service. So once it is unbind, so on unbind will call, and then on destroy. So once it is unbind to that particular component, the service will be destroyed. So this is how the life cycles in the services work for unbound services and for the bounded services. So as you can see here, so when the service is started with the bind service, on create and on bind methods are invoked. So on create and on bound methods are invoked. And once the service is unbounded by unbind service, then these are invoked on unbind and on destroyed. So we have an application which I'll show you now. So where we will just see this life cycle only. So let me open that. Okay. Let me run it. Okay, so So this is the application. So let me first tell you what we are doing. So as I said, you can even also for the services, you have to use intent to start and stop them. So if you look here, the first start service, so this is the code related to that start service, this one. So what it is doing, we are first declaring an intent, and then we are passing that intent to the stop, means to the start service. Okay, here, okay, start service. So when you pass that intent, that particular service will be started. So if you look, start service. So in the logcat, you can see that we are now we first started on create and on start command. So as you look from this one, the cycle. So as you can see, on create and on start command will be invoked. So you can also see it here. Here on create and on start command is invoked when we start a service. So when we stop a service, so this we are passing an intent to a stop service here. So if I stop this service, you can see on destroy is invoked. So you can also see that in the life cycle that on destroy is invoked and the service will be shut down. So yes, this is basically the life cycle for the unbounded services. So if you look here, I'll also show you the code of what is happening. So when we do start service and we pass the intent, so since we are calling this activity, this share activity dot class, so here is the share activity. So I have written all these things, means I'm just logging this. So I'm pasting this message in the log. So when the particular service is started, we first come into on create. So this is the on create method, then the on start command, then on start command. So it is basically like a sequential thing. First on create, then on start command. So this message will come to logs, then this message. So it is just to show that we are in this now on create method, and then we are in this on log. So when we stop the service, we are into this on destroy. So this is how. Then it depending on the developer or depending on what you want to do, you can just write the code here, whatever you want to write for starting the service, or when you want to destroy, what the code you want to run, and yes, that things. So this is related to the services. So this is what I have written here. So we can start a service by creating an intent and then passing that intent to the start service method. So you first created an intent and then pass that intent to the start service, and then we got that particular start service. So as we saw in the life cycle, whenever a service is started, that methods are invoked, on create and on start command. So similarly, when we stop it, on destroy is invoked. So here we declared intent and then we pass that intent to the stop service, and you can see that this is invoked. So basically the service is stopped. Yeah, so this is the part of the code we just now saw, that in each of the methods I'm just posting that particular message in the logs. So for on create, if you can look, for on create, I'm just posting in on create, in on start command, and like that. So anyone has any doubt till here? Anything you wanted to ask, you can ask. Okay. So as like we saw in the activities, we can also allow other application to start my services. Like similarly, there will be two methods. So we can declare an intent filter for that particular service, like here you can see. Or else you can say that the particular service means you can declare exported with true. So we'll see first this. And one more thing to note here, you can also declare your own actions. So you can see here the action name I have said that com.example.course.activity f2 and download data. So this is not like action which is provided by Android documentation or nothing such that. You can also declare your own actions. There is a thing like you can declare it. So I'll show you this application. Okay. So similarly, in activity app 2, if you go to manifest, You can see these services, right? So basically the service with an intent filter is this one. So it is declaring one intent filter, this download data. So any application, if it sets an activity, if it sets an intent to action this download data, means if it passes this entire thing, this service will be invoked. So any application can invoke these services. And if suppose let's take a scenario wherein some sensitive things are happening inside of the application, and you find out that an application is having an intent filter or is exported, and whenever you call it, something is happening in the application which should not happen, or if you are not authorized to do it, then it's probably you can report it, or it should be a bug, like it should not happen. So that is why you have to properly check the manifest file first before doing anything else, doing any dynamic analysis. So this is why the static analysis is very important. Check the different things in the manifest file, like how the components are declared, like how those attributes are stated. So here also the exported is true. So that means any application on the device can call it. So first we'll look on this, the service with an intent filter. So let's see whether we can call it. So this is my service application, and this service is in the course application 2. So my implicit service. Okay, my implicit service. Okay. So what I have did is I've just logged this message so that we can know that that particular app call this. So what we will do. Let's see the logs that we are getting. Okay, you can see, right? That message is printed. So that means this we are in this on start command. So if you remember, as you can see, we are in the on start command. So in the on start command, I'm just displaying that message. So what happening here is this my service application is calling that particular service in this, and then we are getting this message here. So this is how we can call an with a method one, like by declaring an intent filter. Since it is declared its own intent filter, we can call it. So I'll show you how I called it with my service application. If we go into main activity, see here, this is the code. So this button is basically doing it. So when I on click for that particular button, so I'm first declaring a string with that action. You can see that that particular service has a custom action, so I'm declaring it, and then I'm just passing it to the intent. So I created an intent, and then I'm doing start service with the I. So that I actually has an action, custom action, and custom action is this. So that is why this application can call that particular service. Okay, anyone has any doubts? Why you are able to do this or anything else, you can just ask. Okay, we'll move forward. Yes. Okay, so this is method 1 by declaring an intent filter. The method 2 is similar to the activity. We can just make this attribute as true. So exported is true. So if you look in the my service, okay, this application, exported is true for this service. So now if we go to my exported service, the code I'm just printing that I'm an exported service. So if this my service application call the exported service, you should get this message. So because this service is exported, right? So when I'm in the on start command because the service is started, and now I'm printing this message. So basically just a proof of concept that I can call this service. So yes, this is this is how we call an exported service. Okay. Okay, now we will move to the broadcast. So what are the broadcasts, you will say? So broadcast nothing but the messages, as we discussed, which can be from the system or can be from the different applications. So these are just 10 notification messages. So application can receive broadcast to the manifest declare receivers. So as we saw with activity and with the services, we can declare intent filter to those components. We can also declare intent filters for broadcast. So here is one warning, like for API level 26 and higher, you cannot declare receivers for implicit broadcast. So basically what it means is if the broadcast is implicit, then you cannot declare a receiver for it. Means you cannot declare an intent filter for that receiver to catch this broadcast. So there are few broadcasts which you can still call, like let me see. Okay, so as you can see there, I'm on the developersandroid.com. So if your target API is 26 or higher, you cannot use manifest to declare receiver for implicit broadcast. So there are few exception for it. So if you go here, so these are the different broadcast where you can still define an intent filter. Like these are a boot complete broadcast, can be a time zone change broadcast. So basically these are system broadcast. So what does this means is whenever there is a boot complete, whenever your phone restarts, and system will send and broadcast, and then in your application you will define a receiver to receive that broadcast. So once you receive that broadcast, then you can do whatever action you want to do in the code. But this is the thing. So whenever the time zone is changed, you will receive that broadcast and you can do other things with it. So let's see how we can do it in the application. Yes. So implicit broadcast. So as I said, implicit broadcast in the sense implicit receiver, not broadcast. So basically, we are receiving the broadcast from the system or from the other application. So here's the one. So I'll show you that. I have created one application. So I close this my service application. Okay. So now we are in the manifest. So you can see this is the implicit broadcast which I have declared. So this broadcast will receiver I have declared. Sorry, not broadcast. So this receiver will receive the broadcast from the system whenever the time zone is changed. So if you look at this my implicit receiver, so what I am doing is okay. So I'm just making a toast message that time zone is changed. So let's see how this is working. Okay. So this is that app. So what we will do, we'll try to change the time zone and we will see what we should get this toast message. So, okay, this is, okay, let me just install it on another device. Here the settings, yeah, it's there, it's there. Just a second. Okay, so we go to settings. Business search here, date and time. We can change the time zone. Okay, select time zone. Okay, now we will see changing a time zone. Okay. Okay, just let me play 17. Just a second. Okay, let's see whether it is working here or not. Should work actually. Time zone, automatic time zone, select time zone. Okay, you can see that toast message came, right? So if I change any time zone like this, so basically what is happening is the system is sending and broadcast that time zone is changed, and our application is actually has declared one receiver in the manifest to listen to this broadcast. So as you can see, you see that I am listening to this time zone change broadcast, this particular receiver. So that is why whenever a time zone is changed, we are seeing this. See, time zone change. So this piece of code I have written in this. So if you can look my implicit receiver, so my implicit receiver, you can see that I am toasting this message. That time zone is changed. Yes. So this is implicit one. So yeah. So here you can read that the receiver will trigger whenever there is a change in time zone for that broadcast. This is happening because the system is sending a broadcast whenever a time zone is changed, and our application is subscribed or listening for this particular broadcast. So this is how our application is listening with the help of receiver and with the help of intent filter. It is saying that I want the time zone. So here it is that time zone will come. This will come. This will be the action. Okay. So when we listen to the subclass broadcast receive, so this is a toast message. So here in the screenshot it is different, but I've just changed it so that you can know that it came from the whenever we change the time zone, so that it is actually. So once we receive the time zone change broadcast from the system, we display the toast message. So the toast message I've just simply changed it to something else, but this is the actual concept. So now we talked about implicit receiver. Now we will talk about explicit receiver. So similarly, we can broadcast to the same custom receiver explicitly within the same application. So now we are trying to send and broadcast to the same receiver which we have in the application with the same code which we wrote in our application itself. So this, so as you can see, there is one also one receiver, you can say here, with the action example action. So what we are doing is we are just sending to that receiver. So this is within my application only. So it will then pop up this message custom broadcast received. So if you look here, send. So see, send. I'm only sending the broadcast and receiving it. So then once received, I'm telling that yes, custom broadcast is received. So since it is with the intent filter, so then you can see, right? So here you can just guess from here, like this particular receiver is having intent filter, okay? And let's take the same scenario that I have built an application and I'm using this receiver within my application, but I have also set the intent filter, which is a mistake actually, because if you're using within your application, then there is no need to set an intent filter, right? Because when you set an intent filter, then obviously that particular component can be called with other application. So now if you open, there is one more application, this activity 2. So I'll show you that that application can also call that particular receiver. So yeah, you can see here. So I'm sending, so this is my okay, this one. So I'm also sending a
Is it
broadcast from post.
call or other application can receive it?
No, this receiver application is kind of receiving it, right? it is receiving. See, okay, this is not the one. Yeah, you can see, right? It's a receiver. So receiver is basically will receive the broadcast messages. So what I have did here is, so if you consider this as a real application, so what developer has did is he's using this receiver for his own application broadcast, but he has also declared an intent filter for it, which is a mistake basically, because other application can also now send broadcast to these receivers. So now if I go to this course activity app 2, if you send the broadcast, then again also we are getting this custom broadcast receive, because it is now calling this class, this custom class, and we are getting this toast message.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, anything clear till now, because we are done with the intent and intent filters and how they are used in the different components like activities, services, broadcast receiver. So anyone has any doubt, they can ask, or we will move to the next chapter. Okay. Okay, we'll move to the next chapter, which is content providers. So what are content providers basically? So content providers is nothing but whenever your application want to share some data with other application, then they will tend to use content providers. So you can share any data which is within your database, or you can share any files and other things to other applications. So here I have just developed two applications which will look into the code and how they are functioning. So there are two applications. Which first one is my users application. So this application is basically like it will have some users, means you can insert user into application, and it will then store this user into its own database. And there will be one my resolver application. So my resolver application, what will it will do? So it will call the content provider from my user app, and then it will fetch all the users, and then it will list. So if you remember, I'll just in Android components. So if you remember, this is basically what is will happen now. So this application one is my users app, so which is will have a content provider inside it, and application 2 will basically call this content resolver API from its own application, and then it will fetch the details, and in the response we get a cursor, and then we write a code particular to it, and then we display the users. So this is what will happen now. So if you go here, okay. So as you can see, the application my resolver app is basically it will fetch the users from my user app and display the users. So how to implement a content provider? So to implement content provider, we have to use a custom content provider class inside the application, and then we have to define a proper content URI. So what is this content URI? So a content URI is a unique identifier for that particular content provider. So each content provider will have its unique authority. So as we discussed yesterday, that content provider will have its unique authority, so that you can identify which content provider you are directing to. So the content URI look like this. Content is the scheme. This is the authority, means a unique identifier. Then the path, you can even specify path depending on how complex application will be. The path, you can say that if you have different tables in your database, then you can then map this path to those tables. So if you have tables such as users, and then if you have tables such as suppose it's a school related application, then there can be a table called students, then teachers. Then this path you can use to then differentiate between tables, and then with the IDs or anything else, you can just fetch that particular person. So this is how it is. So as you can read, yes, content is a scheme, author is a string to identify the provider. So each authority should be unique, hence should consider using an authority that is same as the provider class package identifier. So what they are saying is you use an provider authority with a name same as a package provider, means the package name, because in the device or in the Android device there will be no different application which will be having the same package name, right? Otherwise they won't get installed. So Android is just saying that use authority name with respect to your package name so that it will be unique. So then the path. So this can be used between a select between different tables. So when there are two or more tables in the databases. Okay. So now let's take the my user application. So let's open that application. We'll open my users and we'll also open my resolver app. Yes. So now if you go to my users app, so there will be different classes. So we will be focusing on the my content provider class only, because these two classes are related to database, like how we have implemented in that. So we will not focus on that one. We are considered about content provider. So how we are dealing with it. So basically, this is a class content provider. So this class will have different set of methods. Like you can see that there is a get type or delete insert. So these are basically for if you want to insert something into a database, or if you want to get something or delete something. So this kind of these methods are used for that. So now we are interested in this, the cursor query. Basically, why we use a cursor is the cursor will point out to the different rows in the database, and then it will fetch the details. So here I have declared that like we need that cursor to point to the database and get those details. So this is the my content provider app. So this is the code to it. So here we extend the my content provider and define all the fundamental methods. So these are the different methods which are declared. So database helper class allows us to carry out database related operations. And now then we query the database with the method I just showed you, cursor query. So the query arguments are as follows. So these are basically the query arguments. So you can see the URI which we are passing, which is a content URI. So that in that URI, you can see that there is a table name, right? After the path or after the this one, you can just here you can see you can just specify a table name if you want to. Projection in the query means the column. Selection means the arguments like where and all. And yes, these are the query related stuff. So now the main part, if you look at the Android manifest, we have declared the provider with the following authority, and export is equal to true. So if you look into my users app, here you can see there is a provider, right? So this is how it is. Like in my users app will should declare the content provider so that it can share those users to other applications. So here you can see that it has a provider in the manifest file. So that the authority of that provider is this com.example my user app content, and it is exported as true. So that means any other application can just call this content provider and fetch those details. So if you are working an application which is an kind of a sensitive application, or means there are users or things related, and if by mistakenly they have kept this attribute as true, then yes, you can exploit that particular provider. So yes, here it is true. So that means the other application can call the users from this application. So now if you look into my resolver app, so see there is one method fetch content. So here you can see that we are passing the content URI. So since there is no tables as such I have defined, I have just querying the particular authority and we are getting all the details. So since there is only one table inside there. So that's why everything is null. So I've set it null, and then what I do, I just query it. So see, you can see I have first content resolver, I declare content resolver and then resolver that query. So I'm querying with the URI, this URI, and the other things like projection, selection, all, but they are still null. But I'm just querying this. So if you see the working, let's just deploy that application on my device. Okay, deploy resolver also. Okay, so both are deployed. So now we'll open them. So this is my resolver and this is my users app. So now currently there is no user, so let's add one user. Switch add. So you can see that users is added. So I can add one more user, let's say add. So two users are added now if you see all. So now if I open the resolver app, let's close all these things. So now if I open the resolver app, my resolver, so you can see that particular resolver just fetch the details or the data from the my user set with the help of this content provider, the resolver URI. So the resolver queried the particular URI and then we fetch the details. So anyone have any questions? Okay. So yes, so here I have said that I have same code is here. So we have defined a function called as fetch content, and then we then query the content provider with the help of content resolver, and then we pass the content to the content resolver this content URI. So key points to take away from this: the content providers are used if the application want to share its data with other applications. Content resolvers are used to query content providers, which further talks with the database. Every content provider should have its unique authority defined in the manifest, Android manifest XML. So if they are having the same authority name, then they will not work. So all the content providers should have their unique authority name. Yes, so actually we are done with the content provider. So anyone have any questions they can ask, we can discuss. Okay. Okay, so let's move ahead then. Okay, so now we will see what are web views and deep links and how they are used inside the applications in Android. So what are web views? So web views are basically views in Android where an application can just display web pages. Means they can start an browser inside the application. So we can also display the custom HTML pages using these web pages. So what are the different scenarios where a developer might prefer to use web views? So say suppose that in the application there is one user guide is there or user agreement is there. So as the application after some months or after some years, this guide will obviously change, right? So they don't need to write a code to just show the user guide. They can fetch this web page from their website and just show it here. So at that time they can use web views. So this kind of stuff actually they can use it. So we will look how we can embed a web view inside activity as well as loading custom HTML inside it. So this is code. So let me show you that application. So this is the application. So we will look into activity one first, which is basically a simple web view, which will load Google. So here, what we did in the on create method, we have declared the web view. So you can see web view set web view client. So we have used web view client here, and then we are loading this URL google.com. And so if you fire this up, let's see. Yeah. So this button one will open this activity one, so that you can also see in manifest file. See, activity one and activity two, there are two activities inside it. So this is the one. Okay, so if I click button one, you can see. Okay, so let me just rerun this again. I don't know what happened. Okay, so just let me check with another device. Okay. Yeah, as you can see, this google.com is loaded. So this is basically inside a web view. So we are using a web view client, which is a kind of a browser that application will use. And then whatever the page you say, then it will load it. So if you change this to say able.com and just rerun the, let's see, we can open able.com. So button one, when clicked, okay, the page not available. https able.com. There's some issue with it. Let's click on Google itself. Yeah. So we again got Google inside. Yeah. So this is a thing with web views. So this is the code related to it. So to implement the web view, we make use of web view class and create a web view object called as my web view. So I'm talking about the code, and now we use the web view client. This web view client set web view client, so that the URL is loaded within the web view. So now we will see how we can run JavaScript inside this. So to run JavaScript, basically JavaScript is by default disabled in the web view, so that it should be enabled so that we can run JavaScript. So there is one web view setting. So if you look into the code here, web view setting, so my web view setting, get settings. So we are setting this set JavaScript enable as true. So if it is not true, then it is not possible to run JavaScript inside web views. So you must have heard like people get XSS or JavaScript injection in Android applications. So at that time, and if the application using WebView, so this should be true to actually run the JavaScript. So what I have did here is I am just loading an HTML page. See, I'm just declaring HTML page, and the JavaScript is there. Then the application should give me alert. So let's try to fire that application again. Go back. So when I click button 2, I should get this JavaScript execution. As you can see, so in the code, if you see the activity 2, see this is the HTML file with the JavaScript I provided. So it is giving me alert 1337. So here we are just setting that enabled, just set JavaScript enabled through. So that is why we are getting JavaScript execution. You can see, right? So yes, anyone have any questions here? Okay. So that is what I said, like as can be seen, JavaScript can be enabled with this piece of code, and then using this load data, we are just loading that particular HTML. So this is about the web views, how we can use them, or how it is taking the HTML also. So now we will talk about deep links. So what are deep links? So deep linking is basically a feature which application uses so that end users can navigate from web browsers to directly their application. So you must have seen, like sometime you click a link on the web browser and then the application get launched. So those that things are actually handled with deep links. So they are the URL which will navigate users directly to the specific content. So when you click the link, so there are actually a sequential order. What will happen? So if you click a link, okay, the deep link. So open the user's preferred app that can handle the URI if one is designated. So you must remember, like on your Android phone, say suppose the default browser is Chrome. So that is how means you can also set a default application to open that web view. So if you set that, then that particular application will open. If you're not set, like there is only one application which can handle it, then that application will open. So open the only available app that can handle the URI. Otherwise, if these two are not set, then allows the user to select an app from dialog. So then you'll get a dialog, and the Android device will ask you like which application you want to open this link to. So basically, this is the sequence. What will happen? So there is one more thing called as app links. So app links are nothing but a special kind of deep links. So how in a deep link you get a pop-up, right? As I said, allows the user to select an app from the dialog. So in the app links, you won't get dialog. The user will directly go into the application. So you don't have to like just see the dialog and click that particular application to launch it. So that thing will not come into picture. So deep link versus app links. So deep links are nothing but intent filters for the activity, which allow the user to launch that activity in the application. So clicking these links, the dialog will open whether you want to carry out the particular action with this application or not. So on the other hand, app links are also deep links, but they will directly take you into that application. So as you can see here, on the other hand, app links is a deep link that is based on the website URL, which has been verified to belong to the particular website. So clicking such links will take the user directly into the application. So the example of this will be a Twitter deep link, or Insta. I don't think Instagram has a deep link. Or Facebook might have a deep link. So actually, this application has configured this app links inside the application. So there is method. There is one method to do it. You have to put the certificate inside the application, and then only the Android will directly launch your application. So the following are the more specific differences. So as you can see, deep links can carry any scheme. It can be HTTP, HTTPS, or any custom scheme. But app links will should require the HTTP or HTTPS only. Also, intent action, any action can you give for intent, but for app link we require this view action only. Similarly, for category, it should be browsable only and default. Also, this link verification, none. So as I said, requires a digital asset links files served on your website. So you should be the owner of that particular website to enable this feature in your application. Like I cannot just put any website's app link to my application. It will not open in. Means if I click the Twitter app link, it will not open my application. I should also own the Twitter web application. So that is it is saying. So user experience and then compatibility. So this deep links is for all Android version, but these app links are now recently developed. So it is from Android 6 and higher. So now we'll see declaring an intent filter for incoming links. So similarly, for deep links to work, as I said, we have to declare an intent filter. So as you can see here, this is a manifest file for the application, and if you can see, there is an activity called as deep link activity, and it has declared an intent filter. So this intent filter has an action view. It is category is default and browsable. Browsable in the sense it can be browsed from, it can be launched from any browser, and scheme is HTTPS. And also note that an activity can have multiple intent filters. So here you can see that this activity can also have one more intent filter. See, if you can have multiple intent filters. So here also we set the action is view and the category is browsable. But now you can see that scheme is different. Like I have just given a custom scheme. So as you can see here, you can give a custom scheme, right? In deep links. So this is a deep link. So you can just give a scheme. I have given a Batman. I have given a host as a like just Gotham and path, any path. So now we will see. So as you can see that action specifying the action view intent so that the intent can be reached from the browser. These are the data tags which represent the URI format which resolve to activity, and the category, it is browsable. So it can be reached by the web browser. So now let's just test deep links. So I have the application. Let me open it. Okay, so this is the deep link activity. So what we will do, we'll try to launch this application from an ADB. Like I'm just starting in with the help of Activity Manager, and I will start that particular activity. So we will talk about ADB in the next chapter. So I'll just tell you what is this. So we're starting an activity with Activity Manager, and we're then passing that what action we have to set for the intent, and then the data like this https ebuild.com and for which activity. So let me just copy this to Notepad. Okay, I have it already, I guess. Yes. So now if I okay, so this is the so now it is installed, I guess. Deep yes, my deep link app is still it's there on the device. So let me go to CMD. I have ADB already installed. So if I hit it, more than one device. Okay, so there are more than one devices. ADB devices. Okay, so let me select my device where I want to do it. So you can do this with -S, select, and then you have to pass this. See that application opened when I started that particular activity. So here you can see that I have given this HTTPS scheme, ebuild.com host. So if you see here, that HTTPS scheme will work. So that's why that particular activity just invoked. Now we will see that whether we can give this scheme Batman with host Gotham and whether it will work. Because since we have declared in intent filter for it, it should work. So let's check that one. So here you can see. So let's see. You can see here that I have given a scheme as Batman and host as Gotham, and we have set that. So if I put this here, okay, let me also select the device from here so that it will be easy. Okay, copy. So open that device again. Let's close this so that it will be open again. And we hit enter. As you can see, deep link triggered me. So that deep link for this activity was this Batman and this. As you can see here, I have declared that particular intent filter, and that's why that particular activity invoked. So this is this activity, different activity. So yes, this is about the deep links. So anyone have any doubt regarding WebView or deep link, they can ask. Okay. So now we will move to ADB, Android Debug Bridge. So ADB is a kind of very important tool while doing Android hacking. So what is ADB basically? So ADB is nothing but a command line utility, so that let you communicate with your device. So when you put like with the help of ADB, you can just start a shell on your device and you can do different stuff. So what are the things you can do with ADB? So you can install application. You can just push any data into your device. You can pull things outside. You can also debug the application. So these are the things you can debugging application, changing application behavior. So ADB has three components. So it has a client. So client will run on your workstation. Your workstation in the sense your system. So which sends the command to the device. So it has three components: client, daemon, and server. So daemon runs on your Android device as a background process, and server will also run on your workstation, and the server runs as a background process on your workstation, and it will manage the communication between the client and the daemon. So how to install it? So for Linux, it's very easy. You just do sudo apt install Android tools ADB. But for Windows, there are a few steps involved. So first, you need to download the ADB from ADB tools. So if you visit here, I guess you can download it. So you can see download SDK platform tool for Windows. So you can download it from here. Once you have downloaded, extract all the files from the folder name ADB and copy in the C drive. So then we have to just set a path in the environment variable. So if you look in my C drive, ADB, you can see that these are the ADB tools which we downloaded, and then I have just set the environment variables to it so that I can directly launch from the command. So if you see path edit, you can see here ADB. So that these are the steps actually which I have mentioned. So you can just follow it and see, click on the advanced and then set a path in system variables here, and then click OK and apply it. So now if I go and type ADB version, I get what is the current ADB version on my system. So yes. So now how can I connect a device with ADB? So now here we are talking about a mobile phone. How we can connect a mobile phone. So I'll just show you guys how you can do that. So basically, with ADB, you can also debug your device, or you can even play with emulators. So now, currently, I have, I think, two devices connected. As you can see, this Genymotion device is one. You can see the IP 192.168. This one, and the emulator. So that is of Android Studio. So I have this one. This one is also connected. So now, if I connect my phone, so that you can. You're not able to see, but I'll show you with the ADB devices command. Once my phone is connected, just a minute. Okay, to connect a phone, basically you need to turn on the USB debugging on your device. So now I have turned it on. So if I click ADB devices, you can see now there are three devices. Basically, this is my device. This is my phone, which I just connected with the help of USB. So yeah, you can connect your device also to your workstation. So now how we can connect the emulator? Like you can see from here that we also getting emulator. So for that, what we have to do in case of Genymotion, if you want ADB to work with Genymotion, you have to do some configuration. So the files which we downloaded before in this tab, ADB files, you have to copy in this folder. So when you install Genymotion, in the program files, there will be a folder created Genymobile, Genymotion, and there will be one folder called tools. So if I can show you quickly, so you can see Genymobile, Genymotion, and then this tools, and you can see this. So these are all the files. You can see ADB exe. So once you set this, yes, you can just then interact with the emulator phones as well. So add this part to your path environment variable as shown. So then when I do ADB devices, my phone will appear. So now some ADB commands which will be helpful while doing Android hacking. So basically, if you want to start ADB, like start the server, you have to do ADB start server. So let's consider that you have just installed ADB and it is idle. So you have to just use ADB start server. I think it's server. Yes. So just so you can start with this. You can even kill the ADB server. You can do ADB kill server. It will be killed. So now you do ADB devices. Again, it will start by its own and it will show the list. So when I do devices means any ADB command, it will be started. So this is the next command. You can list the devices. What are the devices which are connected to now your workstation? So now currently I have phone. My phone still connected, and there is one emulator connected. So now let's see how we can install an application to the device. So let's see whether I have an application. Okay, okay, I'll be using Kali for it. Okay, so let's say that this is a root checking app. So let's say we want to install it in our device. So now currently, if I do ADB devices, there is this device we are showing. Yeah, now currently I think it is installed. Let me uninstall it so that we can install it. Okay. So now if I do ADB install, and base.apk, so you can see we got a success message. That means it is installed. So now if we check the device, see this root checker is installed. So we can install things with ADB. We can even uninstall it, but we need a package for it. So let's move ahead. So as you can see, we can even get the shell for that particular device. So for this phone, I can enter into the shell. We just have to do ADB shell. So when I do ls, so these are all the files for this emulator device. So then we can just go into, say, the applications are all in data app. So these are all the applications which are installed, and the folders related to will be in if I do one more step back in data. So in data, these are the package name for it, and you can find the folder. So if I go to this root checker app, form dot root checker. So Yeah, okay, there is no files related to the application. Let's see another application we can see. Okay. Okay, so then I've gone in this application. So there are some files, cache related files in this application. So this is how you can just browse then the device and the application inside it. And if you want to exit, then you just press exit and it will exit. So you got a normal shell. So yes, exit. Now how can we push some files inside the device? So for that, let me create one. Okay, yes. Okay, let me create a test file. Okay, so we have this file test. So how can we push that in this device? So we just do adb push, and now since we currently have only one device, so that will be pushed in here. So we want to push in SD card. So it will go in SD card. So you can see the message test txt one is pushed. So if we look now, adb shell, go to SD card, you can see we get that file here test.txt. So this is how we can push it. So now if you want to pull it back, now if you want to pull any file, so how we can do that? So let's first we did the test from here. Now what we will do, we will just pull the file back. Where we pull SD card test.txt. I remember this was the name. Okay, so that one file is pulled. So if you look now, yes, we got that file. So this is how we can push and pull files with the help of ADB. Yeah, you can see that ADB pull, and then the device file path means on the workstation, on your workstation where the file exists, and then where you want to push it, where you want to pull it, or where you want to push it, like that. So logcat. So this is also an important ADB command. So basically, it will give you the logs for all the processes which are happening on the device. As you can see, these are all the logs. So if I do something on the device like opening or closing some application, then this logs will generate. You can see that logs are getting generated. So this down logs might be like for this application. So this is how the logs are getting generated. So you can even do like ADB logcat, and then you can just grab for the particular application package name. So that will come. So if let me show you quickly what I can do. ADB shell cd data. Okay, so now here from here we'll know the package name. So let's say I also have Twitter installed. This package. Okay, so this is the package name for Twitter. What we will do, we'll try to see if we can get logs for Twitter. So ADB logcat, and then grab logcat, grab. I think we are getting some logs related to Twitter. So yes, this is how you can grab for particular logs. So yeah, you can also find string, or you can do find string Twitter, and then you will get only logs related to Twitter. So if you want to list packages, like what are different packages there on your device, so you can do just ADB shell pm list packages. So I'll just quickly show you that. See, these are the all packages which are installed on your device. So different applications. So these are some application which I built. My receiver app. We just saw that this all applications are there. So we can just get the packages. So yes, you can even do uninstall. So you just pass on the package name and ADB uninstall. So let's say we will uninstall this one. Twitter will uninstall. So there is Twitter still there on the device. So let's say uninstall. So yeah, we got success. Yeah, it is gone. Twitter is gone. So we just uninstalled application with ADB. So these are different actually the commands which ADB can do, and since it's a very powerful tool, we can do many things. So as you can see that we can even see all the processes which are running the device. So if I do ADB shell ps, these are all the processes which are running. So with their user ID, this is user ID for each process. So these are root processes. These are related to some application. So anyone have any questions till now? You can ask. So yes, you can see here that yes. Can I? Actually, your voice is a little bit slow. Yes, we can do that. Yes. Since it's a shell like Linux shell, we can just open that file right inside. So if I do ADB shell here, so yeah, if you want, like I can create a file just here only. Okay, with nano. Let's see, we can create a file. Okay, nano it's not supported here. Will do.
You can use VI.
Yeah, I will do. Okay, so here we are in the insert mode. I'll insert something, and then let's save it. Okay, so file system. Okay, let's do one thing.
I guess sudo was required. I guess.
Yes. Yes. No. The file system.
We'll have to start the ADB or sudo, I guess.
No. Actually, we go as a root only. Let's see ADB root. See, you can see the daemon is already running as a root. So we are actually in the root.
Okay.
Let's do one thing. We'll just push it again, and let's see. Okay, but still it will be in read only. I guess it will be in read only, but we can try. So we have pushed one file. Let's see. SD card. I'll go to insert. I think I'll get the same. Yeah, I think it is edited now. So let's just get. So you can see, right? I just edited a file inside the device. Yeah, yeah. So yes, we can do it. Since we are as a root, we can do anything, right? So we can just insert file, delete file, remove, push. We can even edit. Let's move ahead. So this is now it's an dumps package. So whichever the package name you give, it will just find all the activities related to that package. We just now deleted the Twitter, so let's see any application we can check. My receiver app. Okay, my receiver app. So let's first copy this and find Sting. See, we have. Can we get anything? Find Sting. Okay, let's grab it then. Grab my receiver. So we can get anything activities related to it. Okay. So I think currently the find string command is not there in the system. But yes, I think I tried this on the command prompt. But we can actually list the activities. So we just pass on the string for which application we want to list. And then since what each activity will have an activity keyword at its end, so we then finding that particular string. So all the activities will be listed. Yes, so we can also invoke an activity of a target package. So this is AM, this is activity manager. So what we do, ADB shell AM start, and then we give the package name / the activity name. So this we can do. Let me first get the package name for this app, my receiver app. Let's open, we can just quickly check. It's not open. Okay, so we go to ADB shell, CD data, then ls, we'll grab the receiver. Yeah, its package name is example my receiver app. So what we do, ADB exit, ADB shell AM, ADB shell AM start, and there will be a main activity. So I guess it should work. So you can see that app got opened. So if you want to see it again, okay, whenever I click it will go. So you can see that application will open, that main activity is started. So we can even start activities with the help of ADB, with the help of this activity manager. So here I tried invoking the activity of Twitter with start activity, but as you can see that we have invoked with the receiver application. So you can just invoke any activity inside the device. So you can even force stop the particular package or the device. You just have to give the package name and then force stop. Say if the application is not behaving properly, you can even force stop with the help of ADB. So yes, so these are the different commands which will be helpful for Android hacking in ADBs. There are more commands if you visit this website. It's a good website. So they have listed a few more commands like so this we tried like start, kill server, reboot. You can even reboot the Genymotion instance. If I do reboot, it will just reboot. So these are all different commands. Like we also tried this install. So file operation we tried push pull. So this is related to the phone info. We can get the phone info, but you can try this like dumps is battery and all. You can get battery info. So yes, you'll get this the content also. So you can just try out what are the different things. So yes, I think we are done with all the chapters which we have covered in today's class. So if anyone have any questions related to what till now what we have covered till ADB, you can ask or you can put them in the chats and we will try to answer. Yes, no questions. Then I think we can wrap up with the today's class.
Yeah, I guess there are no questions, so we can wrap up. Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you everyone.